Chapter 13. The Very Secret Diary. Hermione remained in the hospital wing for several weeks. There was a flurry of rumor about her disappearance. When the rest of the school arrived back from their Christmas holidays, because of course everyone thought that she had been attacked, so many students filed past the hospital wing trying to catch a glimpse of her that Madame Pomfrey took out her curtain again and placed them around Hermione's bed. To spare her the shame of being seen with furry face, Harry and Ron went to visit her every evening. When the new term started, they brought her each day's homework. If I had sprouted whiskers, I had take a break from work, said Ron, tipping a stack of books onto Hermione's beside table one evening. Don't be silly, Ron. I have got to keep up, said Hermione briskly. Her spirits were greatly improved by the fact that all the hair had gone from her face and her eyes were turning slowly black to brown. I don't suppose you have got any new lead, she added in a whisper so that Madame Pomfrey couldn't hear that. Nothing, said Harry gloomily. I was so sure it was Malfoy, said Ron for about the 100th time. What's that? Asked Harry, pointing to something cold sticking out from under her Hermione's pillow. Just a get-well card, said Hermione hastily, trying to poke it out of sight. But Ron was too quick for her. He pulled it out flickly, it opened and read it loud. To Miss Granger, wishing you a speedy recovery from your concerned teacher, Professor Gilderoy Lockhart, Order of Merlin Third Class, honorary member of the Dark Force Defense League, and five-time winner of Witch Weekly Most Charming Smile Award. Ron looked up at Hermione distressed. You sleep with this under your pillow? But Hermione was spared, answering by Madame Pomfrey sweeping over her evening dose of medicine. Is Lockhart the smarmest bloke you have ever met or what? Ron said to Harry as they left the infirmary and started up the stair towards Gryffindor Tower. Snape had given them so much homework, Harry thought he was likely to be in the sixth year before he finished it. Ron was just saying he wished he had asked Hermione about many rat tails you were supposed to add to hair-raising potion when an angry outburst from the floor woke about teachers their ear. That's Fleech, Harry muttered, as they hurried up the stair as paused out of sight, listening hard. You don't think someone else been attacked, said Ron tensely. They stood still, their head inclined toward Fleet's voice, which sounded quite hysterical. Even more work for me, mopping all night, like I haven't got enough to do. Not this is the final straw, I am going to Dumbledore. His footsteps receded along the out-of-sight corridor and they heard a distant door slam. They poked their hands around the corner. Fletch had clearly been manning his usual lookout post. They were once again on the spot where Mrs. Norris had been attacked. They saw at a glance that Fletch had been shouting about. A great flood of water stretched over half the corridor, and it looked as though it was still sweeping from under the door of Moaning Martle's bathroom. Now that Fletch had stopped shouting, they could hear Martle's well echoing off the bathroom's wall. Now what's up with her? Said Ron. Let's go and say, said Harry, and holding their ropes over their ankle, they stepped through the great wash of water to the door, bearing it out of order sign, ignored it as always, and entered. Morning Myrtle was crying, if possible louder and harder than ever before. She seemed to be hiding down her usual toilet. It was dark in the bathroom because the candles had been extinguished in the great rush of water that had left both walls and floor soaking wet. What's up, Myrtle? Said Harry. Who's that? Glugged Myrtle miserably. Come to throw something else at me. Harry waddled across to her stall and said, why would I throw something at you? Don't ask me, Myrtle shouted. emerging with a wave of yet more water which splashed onto the already sopping floor. Here I am, minding my own business, and someone thinks it's funny to throw a book at me. But it can't hurt you if someone throws something at you, said Harry reasonably. I mean, it had just go right through you, wouldn't it? He had said the wrong thing. Myrtle puffed herself up and shrank. It's all throw book at Myrtle because she can't feel it. 10 point if you can get it through her stomach. 50 point if it gets through her head. Well, ha ha ha. What a lovely game, I don't think. Who threw it at you? Anyway, asked Harry. I don't know. I was just sitting in the U bend thinking about death, and it fell right through the top of my head, said Myrtle, glaring at them. It's over here. It got washed out. Harry and Ron looked under the sink where Myrtle was pointing. A small thin book lay there. It had a shabby black cover and was as wet as everything else in the bathroom. Harry stepped forward to pick it up, but Ron suddenly flung out an arm to hold him back. What? Said Harry. Are you crazy? Said Ron. It could be dangerous. Dangerous? Said Harry, laughing. Come off it. How could it be dangerous? You had be surprised, said Ron, who was looking apprehensively at the book. Some of the book the ministry confiscated, that told me. There was one of that burned your eyes out, and everyone who read Sonnet of Sorcerers spoke in limericks for the rest of their lives. And some old witch and bath had a book that never stopped reading. You just had to wander around with your nose in it, trying to do everything one-handed. And all right, I have got the point, said Harry. The little book lay on the floor, note script and soggy. Well, we won't find out unless we looked at it, he said, and he ducked around Ron and picked it up off the floor. Harry saw at once that it was a diary, and faded year on cover told him it was 50 years old. He opened it eagerly. On the first page, he could just make out the name P.M. Riddle in smug ink. Hang on, said Ron, who had approached cautiously as was looking over Harry's shoulder. I know that name. P.M. Riddle got an award for special service to the school 50 years ago. How on earth do you know that? Said Harry in amazement. Because Flitch made me polish his shield about 50 times in detention, said Ron resentfully. That was the one I blubbed slug all over. If you had wiped Slim off a name of an R, you had remembered it too. Harry peeled the weight page apart. There were completely blank. There wasn't faintest trace of writing on any of them, not even Auntie Mabel's birthday or dentist half past 3. He never wrote it in, said Harry, disappointed. I wonder why someone want to flush it away, said Ron cautiously. Harry turned to the black over of the book and saw the print name of variety store on Waxula Road, London. He must have been muggle-born, said Harry thoughtfully. You have brought a diary from Vauxhall Road. Well, it's not much use to you, said Ron. He dropped his voice. 50 point if you can get it through Myrtle's nose. Harry, however, pocketed. Hermione left the hospital wing, bewhiskered, tailless, and fur-free. At the beginning of February, on her first evening back in Gryffindor's Tower, he showed her P.M. Riddle's diary and told her the story of how they had found it. Oh, it might have hidden powers, said Hermione enthusiastically, taking the diary and looking at it closely. If it has, it's hiding them very well, said Ron. Maybe it's shy. I don't know why you don't chuck it, Harry. I wish I knew why someone did try to chuck it, said Harry. I wouldn't mind knowing how Riddle got an award for special service to Hogwarts either. Could I have been anything, said Ron. Maybe he got 30 owls or saved a teacher from the giant squid. Maybe he murdered Myrtle. That would have done everyone a favor. But Harry could tell from the arrest look on Hermione's face that she was thinking what he was thinking. What? Said Ron, looking from one to other. Well, the Chamber of Secret was open 50 years ago, wasn't it? He said. That's why Malfoy said. Yeah, said Ron slowly. And this diary is 50 years old, said Hermione, tapping it excitedly. So, oh Ron, wake up, snapped Hermione. We know the person who opened the chamber last time was expelled 50 years ago. We know T.M. Riddle got an award for special service to the school 50 years ago. Well, what the if Riddle got his special award for catching the hire of Slytherin? His diary would probably tell us everything where the chamber is and how to open it and what sort of creature lives in it. The person who is behind the attack this time wouldn't want that lying around all day. That's a brilliant theory, Hermione said Ron. With just one tiny little flaw, there is nothing written in his diary. Hermione was pulling her wand out of her bag. It might be invisible ink, she whispered. She tapped the diary 3 times and said, Appreciate. Nothing happened. Undoubted, Hermione shoved her hand back into her bag and pulled out what appeared to be a bright red eraser. It's a revolver. I got it in Diagon Alley, she said. She rubbed hard on January 1st. Nothing happened. I'm telling you, there is nothing to find in there, said Ron. Riddle just got a diary for Christmas and couldn't be bothered filling it in. Harry couldn't explain even to himself why he didn't just throw Riddle's diary away. Fact was that even though he knew the diary was blank, he kept absent-mindedly picking it up and turning the page as though it were a story he wanted to finish. And while Harry was sure he had never heard the name T.M. Riddle before, it still seemed to mean something to him, almost as though Riddle was a friend he had had when he was very small. He had half forgotten, but this was absurd. He had never had friend before Hogwarts. Dudley had made sure of that. Nevertheless, Harry was determined to find out more about Riddle. So next day at break, he headed for the trophy room to examine Riddle's special award, accompanied by an interested Hermione and thoroughly unconcerned Ron, who told them he had seen enough of trophy room to last him a lifetime. Riddle's burnished gold shield was tucked away in a corner cabinet. It didn't carry detail of why it had been given to him. Good thing too, or it be even bigger than I had still be polishing it, said Ron. However, they did find Riddle's name on an old medal for magical merit, and on the list of old head boy. He sounded like Percy, said Ron, wrinkling his nose in disgust. Perfect head boy, probably top of every class. You say that like it's a bad thing, said Hermione in slightly hurt voice. The sun had now begun to shine weakly on Hogwarts again. Inside the castle, the mood had grown more powerful. There had been no more attacks since those on Justin and nearly headless Nick. And Madame Pomfrey was pleased to report that the Mandrake were becoming moody and secretive, meaning that they were last living child. The moment their act clear up, they'll be ready for reporting again. Harry heard her telling Fitch kindly one afternoon. And after that, it won't be long until we are cutting them up and saving them. You'll have Mrs. Norris back in no time. Perhaps the heir of Slytherin had lost his or her snare. Thought Harry, it must be getting riskier and riskier to open the Chamber of Secret, with the school so alert and suspicious. Perhaps the monster, whatever it was even now settling itself down to hibernate for another 50 years. Ernie Macmillan of Hufflepuff didn't take this cheerful view. He was still convinced that Harry was the guilty one, that he had given himself away. And the dueling club pew wasn't helping matter. He kept popping up in the crowded corridor, signing off Potter, you rotter, now with a dance routine to match. Gilderoy Lockhart seemed to think he himself had made the attack stop. Harry overheard him telling Professor McGonagall so while the Gryffindors were lining up for transfiguration. I don't think there will be any more trouble, Minerva, he said, tapping his nose knowingly and wicklingly. I think the chamber has been locked for good this time. The culprit must have known it was only a matter of time before I caught him. Rather sensible to stop now before I came down hard on him. You know what the school need now is a moral booster. Wash away the memories of last term. I won't say any more just now, but I think I know just the thing. He tapped his nose again and stored off. Lockhart's idea of a moral booster became clear at breakfast time on February 14th. Harry hadn't had much sleep because of a late running Quidditch practice the night before, and he hurried down to a great hall slightly late. He thought for a moment that he had walked through the wrong doors. The walls were all covered with large lurid pink flowers, was still heart-shaped. Confetti was falling from the pale blue ceiling. Harry went over to the Gryffindor's table, where Ron was sitting looking sickened, and Hermione seemed to have been overcome with giggles. What's going on? Harry asked them, sitting down and wiping confetti off his bacon. Ron pointed to the teacher's table, apparently too disgusted to speak. Lockhart, wearing lurid pink robe to match the decoration, was waving for silence. The teachers on either side of him were looking stone-faced. From where he sat, Harry could see a muscle going in Professor McGonagall's cheek. Snape looked as though someone had just fed him a large beaker of Skelgro. Happy Valentine's Day, Lockhart shouted. And may I thank the 46 people who have so far sent me cards. Yes, I have taken the liberty of arranging this little surprise for you all, and it doesn't end here. Lockhart clapped his hand, and through the doors to the entrance hall marched a dozen surly looking dwarfs, not just any dwarfs. However, Lockhart had them all wearing golden wings and carrying harps. A friendly card carrying Cupid beam Lockhart. They will be rowing around the school today deliver your Valentines. And the fun doesn't stop here. I'm sure my colleagues will want to enter into the spirit of the occasion. Why not ask Professor Snape to show how to whip up a love potion? And while you are at it, Professor Flitwick know more about entrancing enchantment than any wizard I have ever met. The sly old dog. Professor Flitwick buried his face in his hand. Snape was looking as though the first person to ask him for a love potion would be force-fed poison. Please, Hermione, tell me you weren't one of the 46, said Ron as they left the Great Hall for their first lesson. Hermione suddenly became very interested in searching her bag for her schedule and didn't answer. All day long, the dwarfs kept barging into their classes to deliver valentines to the annoyance of the teachers. And late that afternoon, as Gryffindors were walking upstairs for charm, one of the dwarfs caught up with Harry. "Oh, you, Harry Potter!" shouted a particular grim-looking dwarf, elbowing people out of the way to get to Harry. What all over at the thought of being given a valentine in front of a line of a first year, which happened to include Ginny Weasley. Harry tried to escape. The dwarf, however, cut his way through the crowd by kicking people's shin and reached him before he had gone 2 paces. I have got you a musical message to deliver to Harry Potter in person. He said, twanging his harp in threatening sort of way. Not here, Harry is trying to escape. Stay still, grunted the dwarf, grabbing hold of Harry's bag and pulling him back. Let me go, Harry sneered, tugging with a loud dripping noise. His bag split in two. His books, wand, parchment, and quills spilled into the floor, and his ink bottle smashed over everything. Harry scrambled around, trying to pick it all up before the dwarf started singing, causing something of a hold up in the corridor. What's going on here? Come the cold rolling voice of Draco Malfoy. Harry started stuffing everywhere, everything feverishly into his ripping bag, desperate to get away before Malfoy could hear his musical Valentine. What's all this commotion? Said another familiar voice as Percy Weasley arrived. Losing his head, Harry tried to make a run for it, but the dwarf seized him around the knee and brought him crashing to the floor. Right, he said, crashing to floor. Right, he said, sitting on Harry's ankle. Here is your singing Valentine. His eyes are as green as fresh pickled toad. His hair is as dark as blackboard. I wish he was mine. He is really divine. The hero who conquered the Dark Lord. Harry would have given all the gold in Gringotts to Everport on the spot, trying violently to laugh along with everyone else. He got up, his face numb from the weight of the dwarf, as Percy Weasley did his best to disperse the crowd, some of whom were crying with mirth. Off you go, off you go. The bell rang 5 minutes ago. Off to class now, he said, shooing some of the younger students away. And you, Malfoy. Harry glanced over, saw Malfoy stoop and snatch up something. Learning, he slowed it to grab and goal, and Harry realized that he had got Riddle's diary. Give that back, said Harry quickly. Wonder that Potter writing in this, said Malfoy, who obviously hadn't noticed the year on the cover and thought he had Harry's own diary. A hush fell over the onlooker. Ginny was starting from the diary to Harry. Looking terrified, hand it over, Malfoy, said Percy sternly. When I have had a look, said Malfoy, waving the diary tauntingly at Harry. Percy said, as a school perfect, but Harry had lost his temper. He pulled out his wand and shouted, Expelliarmus! And just as Snape had disarmed Lockhart, so Malfoy found the diary shooting out his hand into the air. Ron, grinning broadly, caught it. Harry, said Percy loudly. No magic in the corridors. I'll have to report this, you know. But Harry didn't care. He was one up on Malfoy, and that was worthy 5 points from Gryffindor any day. Malfoy was looking furious, and as Ginny passed him to enter her classroom, he yelled spitefully after her. I don't think Potter liked your Valentine much. Ginny covered her face with her hand and ran into class. Sneering, Ron pulled out his wand too, but Harry pulled him away. Ron didn't need to spend the whole of Charm's bleaching slug. It wasn't until they had reached Professor Flitwick's class that Harry noticed something rather odd about Riddle's diary. All his other books were drenched in scarlet ink. The diary, however, was clean as it had been before the ink bottle had smashed all over it. He tried to point this out to Ron, but Ron was having trouble with his wand again. Large purple bubbles were blooming out of the end, and he wasn't much interested in anything else. Harry went to bed before anyone else in the dormitory that night. This was partly because he didn't think he could stand Fred and George singing. His eyes as green as fresh picked toad. One more time, and partly because he wanted to examine Riddle's diary again, and knew that Ron thought he was wasting his time. Harry sat on his four-poster and flicked through the blank pages, not one of which had a trace of scarlet ink on it. Then he pulled a new bottle out of his bedside cabinet, dipped his quill into it, and dropped a blot onto the first page of diary. The ink shone brightly on the paper for a second and then, as he thought it was being sucked into the page, vanished excited. Harry loaded up his quill a second time and wrote, "My name is Harry Potter." The word shone momentarily on the page and then sank without trace. Then at last something happened. Oozing back out of the page, in his very own ink, came what Harry had never written. "Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary?" This word too faded away, but now before Harry had started to scribble back, someone tried to flush it down a toilet. He waited eagerly for Riddle's reply. "See that I recorded my memories in some more lasting way than ink, but I always knew that there would be those who would not want this diary read." "What do you mean?" Harry scribbled, blotting the page in his excitement. "I mean that this diary holds memories of terrible things that were covered up, things that happened at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. That's where I am now." Harry wrote quickly. "I'm at Hogwarts and horrible stuff's been happening. Do you know anything about the Chamber of Secret?" His heart was hammering. Riddle's reply came quickly. His writing became untidy, as though he was hurrying to tell all he knew. "Of course I know about the Chamber of Secret. In my day, they told us it was legend that it did not exist, but this was a lie. In my fifth year, the chamber was opened and the monster attacked several students, finally killing one. I caught the person who had opened the chamber and he was expelled, but the headmaster, Professor Dept, ashamed that such a thing had happened at Hogwarts, forbade me to tell the truth. A story was given out that the girl had died in freak accident. They gave me a nice shiny engraved trophy for my trouble and warned me to keep my mouth shut, but I knew it could happen again. The monster lived on, and the one who had the power to realize it was not imprisoned." Harry nearly upset his ink bottle in his hurry to write back. "It's happening again now. There have been three attacks, and one seemed to know who had behind them. Who was in the last? I can show you if you like," came Riddle's reply. "You don't have to take my words for it. I can take you inside my memory of the night when I caught him." Harry hesitated, his quill suspended over the diary. What did Riddle mean? How could he be taken inside somebody else's memory? He glanced nervously at the door of the dormitory, which was growing dark. When he looked back at diary, he saw fresh word framing. "Let me show you." Harry paused for a fraction of a second and then wrote two letters. "Okay." The page of diary began to blow as though caught in a high wind, stopping halfway through the month of June. Mouth hanging open, Harry saw that the little square for June 13th seemed to have turned into a musical television screen. His hand trembling slightly, he raised the book to press his eye against the little window, and before he knew what's happening, he was tilting forward. The window was widened. He felt his body leave him bed, and he was pitched headfirst through the opening in the page into the whirl of color and shadow. He felt his feet his solid ground and stood shaking as the blurred shape around him came suddenly into focus. He knew immediately where he was. This circular room with the sleeping potion was Dumbledore's office. But it wasn't Dumbledore who was sitting behind the desk, a wizened, frail looking wizard, but except for a few wisps of white hair, was reading a letter by candlelight. Harry had never seen this man before. "I'm sorry," he said shakily. "I didn't mean to butt it." But the wizard didn't look up. He continued to read, for flowing slightly. Harry drew nearly to his desk and stammered "I'll just go, shall I?" Still the wizard ignored him. He didn't seem even to have heard him. thinking that the wizard might be deaf. Harry raised his voice. Sorry, I disturbed you. I'll go now, he half shouted. The wizard flooded up the letter with a slide, stood up, walked past Harry without glancing at him, and went to draw the curtain at his window. The sky outside the window was ruby red. It seemed to be sunset. The wizard went back to desk, sat down, and twiddled his thumb, watching the door. Harry looked around the office. No quick, no phonics, no whirling silver contraption. This was Hogwarts as Riddle had known it, meaning that this unknown wizard was headmaster, not Dumbledore, and Harry, was little more than phantom, completely invisible to the people of 50 years ago. There was a knock on the office door. Enter, said the old wizard in a feeble voice. A boy of about 16 entered, talking of his pointed hat. A silver perfect badge was glinting on his chest. He was much taller than Harry, but he too had jet black hair. A Riddle, said the headmaster. You wanted to see me, Professor Dippet, said Riddle. He looked nervous. Sit down, said Dippet. I have just been reading the letter you sent me. Oh, said Riddle. He sat down, gripping his hand together very tightly. My dear boy, said Dippet kindly, I cannot possibly let you stay at school over the summer. Surely you want to go home for the holidays. No, said Riddle at once. I had much rather stay at Hogwarts than go home that you live in Muggle orphanage during the holidays. I believe, said Dippet curiously. Yes, sir, said Riddle, reddening slightly. You are Muggle born, half blood, sir, said Riddle. Muggle father, witch mother, and are both your parents. My mother died just after I was born, sir. They told me at the orphanage she lived just long enough to name me Tom after my father, Marhole after my grandmother. Dippet clucked his tongue sympathetically. The thing is, Tom, his signed special arrangement might have been made for you, but in the current circumstances, you mean all these attacks, sir? Said Riddle, and Harry heard lipped, and he moved closer, scared of missing anything. Precisely, said the headmaster. My dear boy, you must see how foolish it would be of me to allow you to remain at Castle when term end, particularly in light of the recent tragedy, the death of that poor little girl. You will be safer by far at your orphanage. As a matter of fact, the Ministry of Magic is even now talking about closing the school. We are no nearer locating the source of all this unpleasantness. Riddle's eyes had widened. Sir, if the person was caught, if it's all stopped, what do you mean? Said Dippet with a squeak in his voice, sitting up in his chair. Riddle, do you mean you know something about this attack? No, sir, said Riddle quickly, but Harry was sure it was the same sort of no that he himself had given Dumbledore. Dippet snaked back, looking faintly disappointed. You may go, Tom. Riddle slid off the chair and floated out of the room. Harry followed him. Down the moving spiral staircase, they went, emerging next to the gargoyle in the darkening corridor. Riddle stopped, and so did Harry. Watching him, Harry could tell the Riddle was doing some serious thing. He was biting his lip, his forehead furrowed. Then, as though he had suddenly reached a decision, he hurried off, Harry gliding noiselessly behind him. They didn't see another person until they reached the entrance hall when a tall wizard with long sweeping auburn hair and a beard called to Riddle from the marble staircase. What are you doing? Wandering around this late, Tom? Harry gaped at wizard. He was none other than 50-year younger Dumbledore. I had to see the headmaster, sir, said Riddle. Well, hurry off to bed, said Dumbledore, giving Riddle exactly the kind of penetrating stare Harry knew so well. Best not to roam the corridor this day, not since he sighed heavily, blade Riddle good night, and strode off. Riddle watched him walk out of sight and then, moving quickly, headed straight down the stone step to the Dogan with Harry in hot pursuit. But to Harry's disappointment, Riddle led him not into hidden passageway or a secret tunnel, but to the very dugong in which Harry had potion with Snape. The torches hadn't been lit, and when Riddle pushed the door almost closed, Harry could only just see him standing stock still by the door, watching the passage outside. I felt to Harry that they were there for at last an hour. All he couldn't see was the figure of Riddle at door, staring through the crack, waiting like a statue. And just when Harry had stopped feeling expectant and tense and started wishing he could return to the present, he heard something move behind the door. Someone was creeping along the passage. He heard, however, it was past the divan where he and Riddle were hidden. Riddle, quiet as shadow, edged through the door and followed. Harry tiptoeing behind him, forgetting that he could be heard. For perhaps 5 minutes they followed the footstep until Riddle stopped suddenly, his head inclined in the direction of new noise. Harry heard a door creak open and then someone speaking in hoarse whisper. Come on, got to get you out here. Come on now, in the box. There was something familiar about that voice. Riddle suddenly jumped around the corner. Harry stepped out behind him. He could see the dark outline of a huge boy who came crouching in front of open door, a very large box next to it. Evening Rebus, said Riddle sharply. The boy slammed the door shut and stood up. What you are doing down here, Tom? Riddle stepped closer. It's all over, he said. I'm going to have to turn you in, Rebus. They are talking about closing Hogwarts if the attacks don't stop. What do you mean? I don't think you meant to kill anyone. But monsters don't make good pets. I suppose you just let it out for exercise and it never killed no one, said the large boy, backing again and closed door. From behind him, Harry could hear a funny rustling and clicking. Now, come on, Rivers, said Riddle, moving you closer. The dead girl's parent will be here tomorrow. The last Hogwarts can do it make sure that the thing that killed their daughter is slaughtered. It wasn't him, roared the boy, his voice echoing in the dark passage. He wouldn't, he never. Stand aside, said Riddle, drawing out his wand. He spelled it. The corridor with a suddenly flaming light, the door behind him, the large boy flew open with such force it knocked him into the wall opposite, and out of it came something that made Harry let out a long, cursing scream unheard by anyone. A watch long swung hair boy and a tangle of black leg, a gleam of many eyes, and a pair of razor sharp pincers. Riddle raised his wand again, but he was too late. The thing blowed him over as it scuttled away, tearing up the corridor and out of sight. Riddle scrambled to his feet, looking after it. He raised his wand, but a huge boy leapt on him, seized his wand, and threw him back down, yelling, No! The scene whirled, the darkness became complete. Harry felt himself falling, and with a crash he landed spread eagle on his four-poster in Gryffindor's dormitory, Riddle's diary lying open on his stomach. Before he had time to regain his breath, the dormitory door opened and Ron came in. There you are, he said. Harry sat up. He was sweating and shaking. What's up? Said Ron, looking at him with concern. It was Hagrid, Ron. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets 15 years ago. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.